Welcome, everybody, to LCS Proving Grounds Summer 2021. We are continuing to go strong in our first series of the day, second game between Evil Geniuses Academy and Golden Guardians Academy. And Smacks, it was quite an explosive start in the direction of GGA.
Yeah, it really was. I think the early game was definitely something that they can go back to the drawing board with and feel like they've got more things to think about. Specifically in a play like this where they try a bot lane dive, but it's not something that ended up going very well for them. They ended up having to dive into a Leona who just crowd controls them to death, and Prismal ends up dying very early on. But from here on out, they only lose out in the sparing fights like this, and where it was especially tragic was when Niles was so close to killing here on Tony.
So close.
Yeah,
almost
the fact that we have to
turning it
relive
around.
this is kind of tough.
Yeah, I feel the pain inching back into my heart in this moment, Smash.
Yeah.
But in the end, GGA did turn things around for the better with an overall victory. But these early moments that we saw from Evil Geniuses Academy, to give some more props to where they're due. I mean, Jojo Pion making sure to be very aggressive, try to bring that power to other portions of the map. But when it came to the Baron play, this being started off by EGA, GGA were the ones that came out on top after a crucial pick.
And I love this vision play for Yunbi, just sticking around in that brush, finding the Everfrost pick onto Jojo, and it just really set things ablaze for the side of Evil Geniuses Academy. They go into panic mode. They're like, well, we don't want to give up this Baron. We're still all here. Can we fight them? We gotta fight them, right? And then it ended up being not the right call at all. They ended up getting completely aced here. Golden Guardians, their play around the objectives this fight and then also the Drake Soul were really stellar. I loved the different decisions that we saw from each player, but specifically Yunbi's Lissandra, it's not a champion that you typically think of as a carry, but he really made it his own. He made it like this huge engage force, and this is the best example of it. I love this fight from him.
It's so great just being able to get right there in the thick of it and just execute for the rest of the team. We saw kind of good flank positioning to have the rest of the team having the opportunity to follow up to lead into a Kindred ultimate, for instance, that was so crucial in a couple of these objective fights to keep GGA in it and really secure things.
It's a good time to remind everyone that Golden Guardians did end up with all 4 Drakes in this game. Despite the early lead going the other way, it did feel like they had a nice grasp on how to go for those objectives, and it was a really late first Drake too. It happened at around 14 minutes into the game, so the fact that they just clean swept it all from there was really solid. And I think for Evil Geniuses, they are going to have to keep a closer eye on those objectives and maybe spend some more time there, not just let those go to the wayside and waiting for 14 minutes for that Drake to find some friends. He's just curled up, sleeping in the pit for a whole while there.
Do you think that's something that, especially as we look towards the rest of the series and what Evil Geniuses can do to turn the tide for themselves, was there a chance for them to try and disrupt that a bit and get some of that earlier agency for themselves on things like the Drake? Because on the side of GGA, we noted the fact that there was that hesitation in the earlier game of where they were going to play, what lane to go towards, which is why we didn't see a lot of action kind of in that Riverside. So do you think EGA might take even more of a proactive approach going forward for some potential victory?
I feel like proactivity is certainly the way to go for Evil Geniuses. This is a team that we definitely know of as a very proactive, very aggressive team that wants to be fighting really whenever they feel strong, and they feel strong very frequently. So while I did have a lot of compliments for them in that early game of keeping their lead their own and not giving it up on a play that might not be the highest percentage victory for them, I feel like they did miss out on some that they otherwise could have set up for themselves. And while they do have a stronger rookie lineup right now, they are going to need to find some ways to plan those out in advance and use the lead that they had, because there was a moment where I remember remarking that, wow, all of them have their mythic items, and nobody on Golden Guardians has theirs at all. There's a huge item gap here where there's a lot of power just in the inventories alone, but Evil Geniuses didn't quite go for anything aggressive at that point. They didn't extend their lead past a flash blown from Yunbi. So I feel like that is something that they're going to need to take note of and use more to their strength.
And that big old chunk of time where the inactivity in some regards is what ended up hurting them and leaving a bit more of that breathing room for GGA to be able to turn things around. I want to look kind of at some of the individuals here and maybe what they can bring to the table in game number 2, because specifically I looked on Twitter and I was reminded of Tim and his top prospects that he had noted for the top 10 prospects is what he was looking at for amateur and academy. And I actually watched that video yesterday, and 3 of them are in the series. You have Tony Top and Jojo Pion on one side, and then Prismal on the other that he called out, but for very different reasons. The young talents in Tony Top and Jojo Pion facing off against a slight more veterancy on the side of Prismal. So how do you think those kind of different energies of these different players interact with one another when it comes to the style on the Rift?
Yeah, well, firstly, I loved that video. That was a great video from Tim. If you haven't watched it, definitely go check that out. But yeah, I think the difference there is pretty large, because to use Tim's verbiage there for Tomio and Jojo, he says that their potential is really, really high. And while they aren't quite like at the best form that they possibly could be right now, you can see it in the mechanics that they display and in the team fights that they typically go for. Whereas Prismal is already a very well developed player and is a very commanding leader in his own right. So I think for that difference, the main thing is going to come down to planning ahead for plays. And I think that's something that both Prismal and actually Niles do very well from his time in Collegiate. So perhaps that is something that is giving Golden Guardians an edge in these mid-game fights, where you can see they have a much clearer idea of what needs to happen in a team fight. And even if Yunbi is diving in as Lysandra and dying without getting any kills, he is the diversion that allows the rest of the team fight to go very well.
Having that opportunity for Yunbi to use all of the utility available in lockdown onto someone like Jojo Pion, and then we noticed so many times the damage dished out by Prismal on the Aphelios, the chunk down from him and Niles, just targeting someone like Team Luke, forcing that rocket jump to get out of fights instead of actually being proactive and in it, worked so well in the team fights for GGA moving on into later portions. If we're looking at the teams as a whole here, Smacks, there's a lot of team fighting that we can expect, right? Because they're both very scrappy. Do you feel that you have historically leaned towards one team or another when it comes to their team fighting potential and prowess?
I think for Evil Geniuses Academy, you can't deny that they have more team fighting experience, because that's just how they play the game. They will go for team fights every single time, and that is one of the reasons why they are one of my favorite teams to watch. Really, just ever. They will always go for those team fights when they are in that form. So I think for Evil Geniuses Academy, they typically are the team that I would favor in that regard. But we saw so many moments where Prismal really got the better of them on this Aphelios, as you said. So for EG, they have to find some way to shut him down further. And I mean, clearly this LeBlanc first pick isn't working the way that they intended it, especially if they have to worry about this Lysandra pick for Yunbi.
It was the Lysandra and the Kindred that did seem to work so well together by having just that disengage or that lockdown, whether they wanted to go in with something like the E on the Lysandra to be very proactive in taking Jojo out of the fight, or they just wait until that last moment to pop something like Rosethorn's ultimate to keep them in it just long enough and cancel out a lot of the damage that EGA were wanting to dish out. As far as the draft and what we see going here, same exact thing as game number 1. Thresh knocked away, get him out of here. Lee Sin didn't want none of that either, and the Renekton and the GP also off the table. GP, nobody wants to see Niles on that today, and the LeBlanc banned away by EGA. So that means we're going to be seeing a different first pick from them this time.
It's feeling like that first pick is going to be Rise at this point for Jojo, because they did remove that away from Yunbi very specifically in the first draft, and Jojo very skilled at that too. Ooh, I like this look instead. Okay, so this is a flex pick between Jojo and Team Luke. I said before in the other draft that Team Luke is the self-proclaimed best Ziggs in the world, so I'm expecting it to go bot lane, but it was banned away from them in game one. They are going to prioritize this pick over the Rise that Yunbi will likely lock in for himself, as Jojo might potentially have a counter pick into it, or, wow, Twist of Fate.
Oh, TF potentially here for GGA. That's the first lock in. So it works into some of that style that we've seen from Yunbi in the past, really just trying to facilitate and affect the rest of the map here, bring some of that power to lanes like maybe what Niles is going to be busting out. And on EGA, they're still feeling secure in their top pick. Ziggs, he noted, could be a flex pick. I believe 8 games for Team Luke during the summertime on the pick. So we'll see what else they bring on through Smacks. But what do you think of this initial response from GGA also taking the Trundle?
So typically for Golden Guardians Academy, when they lock in this Twisted Fate, they are going very heavy on 2v2 skirmish around level 3 with mid jungle. And I don't think Trundle really does that very well. So we're already getting an adaptation there where we would initially expect something like a Volibear or a Xin Zhao when they wanted to do that. That's not going to be the case this time. They're playing more preventative and more around their side lanes, it feels like, with this, as Niles is likely again going to be getting counterpick, and same for Prismal. He does have to see this Ziggs now, and Jojo actually locking in a very early Sylas too as a response to Twisted Fate. I like this a lot. This provides actually Evil Genius's Academy with the 2v2 skirmish style with Sylas and Xin Zhao.
It's a very prominent pick for Jojo Pion as well, something that we have seen him on multiple times throughout the year. And that is the greatest thing about someone like this pick with Hijack, where you just end up taking a lot of the resources and the capabilities of the opposite team and reappropriating it for yourself. But Xin Zhao, always going to be a threat from that jungle position in this current meta, and somebody that you have to be wary of for Tomio.
Of course, we are playing on patch 11.17, 2 patches after the LCS patch. So we have seen a couple of hits to some strong prominent junglers like Viego, who are still not seeing picked, and this Xin Zhao that's been locked in. So something to keep in mind, of course, for Evil Geniuses. They have to worry about slightly less damage from this pick, but Tomio still very strong on this one, and still a lot of early game power that comes with it, which I really appreciate in a game like this because they already have so much scaling. They already have this Ziggs who can deal just so much damage from a mile away with his Mega Inferno Bomb, and the wave clear is really strong too. So I think EG, they have the best of both worlds in that regard.
And the thing about picks like Xin Zhao, like Viego, is even when they do end up receiving those nerfs and patches, it usually takes a bit longer for us to see them completely dissolve from the meta, whether it be on the LCS Academy or amateur level, because the kit's working so well within certain strategies taken by the team, and just thinking of that aspect as opposed to some of the other changes within the champions themselves. But very good to note the fact that they do have to be wary of those changes. Ezreal has been somebody that Prismal has defaulted to in many cases, but a lot of people have been willing to let him take the pick through. So with that and the Vayne taken out, looks like we're getting a Callista for Prismal on GG Academy.
Looks like it's some aggression from the bot lane pair for Golden Guardians. I really like the look of Prismal on this pick. He just has so much agency, and he does feel sort of like that drill sergeant that we like to see from Prismal, where he's commanding everyone. He's jumping around with the martial plays, and he's quite literally throwing newbie into the action with the ultimate too. So this is definitely a fun one to witness for Prismal, as they are still at match point. We'll see if they can close this one out with a high octane pick like this, as they do have to deal with Tony Top's signature Jax. This is the pick that he hit rank 1 on the North American ladder playing.
The man loves to duel, loves to go for the scrap, and that's exactly what we're going to see from Tony Top here in this lineup from EG Academy. They've also brought out the Rakan, so Mystique's piloting that one in this case. And on GG Academy, now you're looking, who does Prismal want to utilize with that Fate's Call to throw into the middle of the action? Newbie has quite a few picks that would work with that, depending on the ults. You always like seeing something like a Braum or Nautilus thrown in, or in this case, it's the Bard with all of his roaming potential that people have been seeing more and more of Smacks across the board.
I am loving the look of Bard. Bard, one of my favorite champions to play personally. It's the musical aspect and the roaming around really scratches that itch for me. I love playing him. But the cool thing about Bard in this game is that he provides some of the same crowd control that something like a Leona or a Nautilus would, but he does it from a longer distance away. You're still playing this range support. You're still playing a champion that wants to be sort of engaged, sort of enchanter, sort of in the middle, like Rakan, really. So this is a cool look for Golden Guardians. They still have that long-range threat with the Tempered Fate, but it's not a full hard commit like something like a Leona would be, and you don't really want to do that against the Jax and Zhaos of the world anyway.
A lot of his strength as a champion comes from how you utilize a lot of that kit too, because you still have things like the Cosmic Binding for the lock-in, but with the Magical Journey and the speed that you get off of those mutes when you're rotating, how do you want to use that to traverse and impact the rest of the team? The ultimate also great at denying objectives as well as just trying to make sure you get people caught out so you can secure that for the advantages for the rest of your squad. So excited to see Newbie on the pick here for GGA. Looking at the drafts in total, Smack's going to ask you again, though, who do you think is bringing the most power? Who are you feeling in game number 2?
I'm a sucker for some Bard, Latigris. I'm feeling it for Golden Guardians as they are setting up an early topside cheese. You know, it's only cheese unless it works. Then it's just the optimal play, right? So for Golden Guardians, they're trying to see if they can optimize it, but they get spotted, I believe, as Tony Top back away wisely on Jax.
Well, walk on top. Try to make something happen. Spot it out. It's okay. Go ahead and back and get to your lanes. Could have been a nice, fun rockin' star. I always appreciate seeing stuff like that right off the bat, Smacks, because it just shows you're in that mindset to really get in the face of your enemy and start things off with such a landslide. But just getting a little bit of fun times here for game number 2.
You don't lose much by going for it, and for Newbie, he wants to do that anyway, because you can see he did start with the Hot Cocoa. He's dropped a couple of those up there for Niles in his lane, just a couple of extra health potions in this sustain battle that Jace typically ends up playing. Rismal hopping the spear finally will find himself to the Bard, who doesn't actually get to leash because of this. He's dying in the bush, but it's going to be all right. Get back to lane this way.
At least he was in the bush. Avert your eyes as I die in this bush, my friends. Don't look at me. But taken care of now, so all in effect, all is good in the world here in the bot lane. So where do you think the most action is going to come from when we're looking at the lanes across the map?
Well, when Evil Genius Academy lock in this Ziggs bot, they are saying, hey, you don't really lane against us in this game. You are just going to be pushing in, hoping that we don't take your turret as Ziggs, and maybe trying to roam around. And a Newbie locking in Bard really commits to that lifestyle, that game style, I should say, as they are now just trying to push in this wave and get Newbie levels so he can hit level 3, find Magical Journey and Cosmic Binding, and maybe go help out the rest of the map, because Rakan and Ziggs are not champions that you really think of when you think of champions that are susceptible to 2v2 kills.
Not quite. And that is always something that you have to consider when you're playing a roaming support, grabbing up the XP when you can, so you're not dilly-dallying too much when you're rotating between lanes. And for Team Luke here on the Ziggs, Ziggs is a champion that is okay just hanging out in the lane by himself if needed. A lot of damage output that he can offer, great structural damage. He really does just want to farm on his own so he can be a threat later on in the portions of the game. So just some normal slap in between the 2v2 here of the abilities, but nothing really too crazy just yet.
That's why he's got teleport in this game. Even if he dies, he still just wants to be in lane just so bad. Just teleport right back to any situation just to farm up those minions and maybe even get some turret. As Evil Genius's Academy, they really want to play bodyguard up here in the top side of the map in case a Newbie does arrive. But more importantly, they want to get this Rift. They can opt that objective, and that combined with Team Luke for Ziggs, you can just take an entire turret like that, snap of their fingers, and the whole thing is dead.
So in the pursuit of that Rift Herald, Rosethorn had secured the scuttle over there on the top side. It is Tomio securing it down here on the bot side. You saw that Nubia was just hanging around for a little bit for the harass, but the bot lane was there to make sure that it happened. EP from Jojo Pion to get back to lane. Already was dashing in, using the Chain Lash and Kingslayer to poke down Yumbi as much as possible, so it's TPs executed on both mid laner sides.
You see the Jojo, with all of this trade pattern that he's going for continuously, he does have to worry about the back end of these trades, because he is this melee champion who uses all of his abilities to get in range. Unity with Corrupting Pot and all of the auto attacks that come through with all the cards, he can still make that work for himself if he doesn't just instantly get one shot by Jojo. So maybe will require some jungle intervention at some point in the near future. Tomio coming out of base now has himself some ruby crystals, more health.
And Yunbi is rotating here from the tri-bush after Prismal gets some smackdown from Mystique, splashes on forward. He here directly in the bush below, but Rosethorn's showing up, gets smacked onto Team Luke, uses Satchel to create some distance, but it's a flash forward from Yunbi to continue off for the first blood. Niles follows up with a kill of his own. That's 2 for Golden Guardians Academy.
This is one of those plays where you don't really plan for it to happen, but as soon as you see Mystique's flash igniting onto your bot laner, you know it's time. You gotta teleport on down. You gotta help him out. Look at Mystique's doing all of this damage as Prismal tries to save his wave. But everyone's here for Golden Guardians to punish it, so it ends up being just fine. We mentioned how for Bard and Callista, you don't really think of killing the Ziggs and the Rakan by yourself, but 5v2 is a lot different from a 2v2. So it's still going to be a couple of kills that way.
Just a bit. Just a little different than the 2v2. Because Rakan can be a bit deceptive in the way that he pokes you down, especially with the Q and all that. But GGA, they all showed up, and it's that responsive nature that worked out for them in the first game that now we're seeing right off the bat. We didn't quite see it until the mid game and beyond, but now for Golden Guardians really keeping it to the forefront of themselves. Jojo ended up going towards this bot lane though, and Prismal backing and kicking himself away from the turret. He's between a rock and a hard place basically. There's knock up from the Grand. This is a nice collapse from the mid laner for EGA.
And Jojo taking out that Destiny does 2 things. It allows him to see where Newbie and Rosethorn are, and where they were was a very compromising situation for Tony. So it saves him the trouble of having the magical journey collapse onto him. And then it also allows him to know, hey, wait, Newbie's not bot lane. I can go bot lane. I'm gonna dive bot lane. And then Prismal is just easy pickings from then on out. Very nicely done from Jojo, and something the Golden Guardians have to think about is they can have their ultimates stolen away from them. That's the power of the Silas. You gotta worry about the Destiny being used against you.
And this early in the game, where there are plenty of targets, as long as he's joined by a teammate or two that he can outlive and dish the damage out onto, which is exactly what you saw when Jojo Pion joined by Mystiques. And they're able to get a kill in their favor here. About a 700 gold lead for Golden Guardians right now. You can take a look at the CS fairly even across, except for top lane. That's where Jace is reigning supreme for Niles, who did get that kill when he teleported down bot as well.
It's 2 games in a row that Niles has done this. Despite in the first one, he ended up getting killed early on by a nice gank from Tomio's Trundle. That hasn't happened this time around, and he's even got some pressure from his support and jungle himself this time. So all of this pressure mounting very heavily onto Tony Top. He's not able to make this Jax counterpick of his work quite yet. We know this is a side lane pick, so it doesn't have to work right now, but will need to work later on. Any mitigation we have.
Oh, Prismal goes in. The bomb comes down. Ignited once again.
Oh!
But can he get the final hit? The heal is just enough to save. Yunbi's made himself to the party. Ooh. That's the nice hit. Gets the stun directly under the turret. They're going to be able to clean up Team Luke here. And that's Golden Guardians Academy once again feeling pretty good. They made the rotations down to the bot lane and it paid off.
Yeah, 5v2 worked, 3v2 works as well. Yunbi with Destiny, showing that both teams have access to this ability. Team Luke and Mystiques have to be more careful than that when Twisted Fate is on the opposition. I love all this damage that they're pouring into Prismal, though. With the Ignite, they actually just come so close. But Prismal saves his heal until after the Ignite is out, getting the maximum benefit of it. Doesn't have to worry about the grievous wounds. I love that heads-up thinking from him, knowing that he's not completely under threat. And that's something that only comes when you play with this duo a lot, because Newbie has Guardian, he has that Shrine for him, so they really know the limits of this, and they know when to exactly use their tools to make this lane work for themselves.
And what do you know? Niles is getting dived over here in the top lane. It is 3 from EGA to make sure this magic happens. And you love to see the response across the rest of the map and them start to bring some of this in their favor to push in this wave. But there is a Bard and there is a TF here on the top side to make sure that they can't push anything else through.
It looks like Tomio and Jojo were already in the area, or not Jojo, Mystiques rather. They see the Rift Herald is in the hands of Tomio, so Niall sticking around despite likely hearing this Rift Herald screech. Will get punished for it. It's Dove, and Tony tops some Rift Eve. You can see the CS lead is not quite as big as it once was. Tony able to pick up that assist for himself and get to go back to the base. Maybe start rampaging in this side lane like we know Jax is capable of. Tomio, Mystiques are right back to the scene of the crime. They're sticking around on this top side of the map just to try to break this Jax out of the lane.
You said it's Max. Tony top. He's trying to get himself ready for the split pushing later. He's not as worried about what's going down in the lane here. And Tomio, rather, able to get that Rift Herald at a time when Rosethorn was a bit on a reset. He had backed when that was going down, so there was no opportunity to contest. And now have that available to them to make a play. There's still a bit of time, quite some time before any Dragon will ensue. Some of the supports coming into the faces of one another here around mid lane. Jojo stepping up into Yoonbi's safe place. There goes the Tempered Fate, but it's a little bit short. Only gets some minions. Stun onto Tomio, but the poke isn't strong enough yet to get him into a worried position.
Top side with Tigers. We're getting some more action. Rosethorn flashes away. I think it's just a swift escape.
Towards the mid lane too. Yoonbi Mystiques the flash forward and Tomio is in pursuit. The knockback goes into stasis. Yoonbi has a little bit of an issue. Niles has arrived to dish out some damage of his own, but Jojo Pion and Tony Top are there to try and answer. The 1v1 in the bot lane though. Prismal facing off against Team Luke. Executes the Ziggs. He's taken out of this. So 2-for-1 trade. 2 killed on Golden Guardians Academy here towards the top side, but the 1v1 in favor of GGA over on bot.
Shutdown onto Yoonbi is really valuable for the members of Evil Geniuses Academy, is still getting some supportal combat. Steeks trying to get some vision into these rushes, but Newbie pushing him out. Let's talk about that bot lane 1v1 though, because Prismal, I can't believe you managed to do... Okay, we'll do that in a second. We gotta watch the rest of the plays. Everything's going on. Yoonbi tried to flash out, but gets popped the wrong way with the blast cone, and Newbie realizes after his magical journey continues, oh, I'm out of mana. I can't keep going for this one. Ends up giving over Rosethorn in the end. Oh, we don't get to see the bot lane one. I'm sad.
Well, in the end, I think that the last moment of that 1v1 was still enough to show you just how aggressive it was played. We'd seen them trading back and forth even when the supports were there. So the continuation of that aggression, even when they're left to their lonesome. But now with the resets, because there is so much action across the entirety of the map, it's a limited opportunity for EGA to just drop down this Rift Herald. You want to get it down before time expires and see if they can get a push here into the mid turret. Tempered Fate from the Bard. That's one of the greatest uses of the ultimate. Niles, once again, the focus of attention from Mystique, making this rotation again towards that top side. But in the bottom side, it's Prismal that is also getting collapsed upon. The knockup is good, and the slashing wish from Jojo Pion gets the kill for themselves. 2 kills for EGA.
Man, that is shocking for Evil Geniuses Academy, able to get picks in both side lanes at the same time. As you said, the Tigers, Mystique's still sticking around in the top lane, helping out Tony Top, making sure that he is not left out to dry on the side lane champion. A third plate gets taken out before the teleport's even able to be channeled as Niles just now arrives. But despite that early CS advantage, Tony is going to be a threat. That is certain at this point. He is playing this Jax, likely has a full Bork at this point. There it is in the inventory. Niles has to be careful.
He truly does, because Tomio still making sure to secure some advantages with the help of the rest of the team. And Niles still working towards his build here as well. Will likely be backing it sometime soon. But this is very much in line with what we expect from EGA when they're at their best, it feels like, Smacks. Making plays across the map. They have Mystiques over on one side. They have Tomio on another, really trying to rattle the cage of GGA by limiting their knowledge of where they should be playing towards most in these situations.
Evil Geniuses Academy taking advantage of the positional errors that Golden Guardians have. And Golden Guardians, they had this really strong early lead. They spread it across multiple different lanes. And while they keep the same advantage that they had in Game 1 of the two Drakes first on the map, 15 minutes, way earlier this time, by the way, they do give up a lot of these picks where they felt like they were strong, they felt like they were safe because they saw multiple members across the board. Like, if I'm Prismal and I see two people ganking Niles, I'm like, okay, I'm pretty safe probably. But no. Everybody is trying to go for these picks on Evil Geniuses Academy, and they're making it work very well.
Second Rift Herald acquired for them as well here. So while GGA have secured the Drakes, EGA securing the objective over on the top side. Feeling pretty good about it, having pushed in that top turret. And still looking to do some more damage towards the other turrets across the map, but they have some time to do so. And one thing that we noted that they did really well in the last game was not getting too antsy and not pushing past their current advantages. So we want to make sure that they still keep their win conditions in mind.
Something interesting about the win conditions in this game is that Golden Guardians, they drafted pretty specifically to help out Niles on this chase, right? They have a roaming support, they have a utility-based mid-jungle duo, and then Niles on his signature case. But in the early game, based on some circumstances that Team Luke and Mystiques put themselves in, all of that priority went to bot lane instead. Prismal was the one who had that advantage, but it didn't really feel like Golden Guardians had adjusted quite to that yet. They now find themselves in a position where Niles was initially supposed to be the early game carry, but isn't really at this point and has been punished quite heavily by the side of Evil Geniuses Academy. So have to find some middle ground or some compromise at this point to really extend that lead that they had early game, which at this point doesn't exist in the same way.
The plays that you mentioned that happened down bot that led to Prismal getting the best of EGA. The crazy thing about him is they didn't look necessarily bad or poor from Team Luke and Mystiques. It was once they just got outnumbered in those scenarios, you could see how much lockdown Mystiques could potentially have, but now they have to try and put that into a moment in the past and get the grand entrance knock up onto Niles this time. The teleport is coming through as well, so this will even the matchup once more after already losing one on the side of EGA. Rose Thorn finding himself the target of Tony Top, who has to back out of it, having expelled most of his HP. Jojo Pion as well, stunned directly onto Jin Zhao, has to swipe them all away to get himself to safety. And Team Luke is here too, full and at the ready, but doesn't have the ultimate. All ultimates expelled on the side of EGA, so it's time for them to cut this and dip.
But it's another successful pick onto Niles. Again, Latigris, they're still finding this guy out. They're still shutting down that designated early game carry here. And this Jace, which looked so strong in the first game too, feels like had a strong point of attack against it this time, as we're now starting to see Tony Top actually take an advantage in the matchup, even despite going down 40 or 50 CS sometimes. As this Blade of the Ring King can go down to the lane, and we're seeing that the main strength of Jace, which is his lane poke, can just be shrugged off. So much sustain comes through with the Blade of the Ring King, and so much sticking power too. You can still get that movement speed, even though it's not the same active that it once was in seasons past. You'll get it just by auto-attacking a couple of times.
And the strength rising in his hits. You can always rely on things like the Counter-Strike just to keep yourself in it a bit longer. It becomes that much more valuable when you have that sustain building into the build that he's currently continuing to work on here. And Niles, while there was some focus on him in game number 1, it didn't feel that it was necessarily to the extent that we have seen recently from EGA in this game to suppress him. And now that turret gone, hasn't been able to find a safe place to farm up. Yunbi is positioned over towards that top side just to be able to clear out the wave. And GGA want to make sure they maintain security over this mid turret, as it's now the only outside turret that they have available to them. And it's the Rift Herald dropped onto it again. Last time the Tempered Fate came in through to deny this charge, and maybe we'll see it again. But right here in the back, Yunbi coming through with the Destiny, gets the stun into Team Luke on the back, so he can dish out that damage that he also needs to. And it's blast galore. Tomio chunks down into the stasis, not up from Mystique, but blasted down to 0 HP on the exit from this fight. Everybody on EGA forced to flash out and away. Even the stun onto Jojo Pyun from Newbie on the side makes sure that he's never able to get back into this fight. GGA on the back foot.
Golden Guardians Academy didn't actually need to win the fight, though. They just need to chunk out their opponents and go for this Drake yet again, trying to lock in all 4 of them in a row. It's going to be 3 out of 4 La Tigers. They're already on their way to making that repeat happen. Golden Guardians Academy, they find that pick onto Mystiques. They keep themselves topped off in the fight. And this is going to be that lock-in right there. Rosethorn doing a phenomenal job. If we're counting both games, that is now 7 for 7 on Drakes in the series.
Yeah, feels good for GGA, man. 3 Drakes for themselves, and in that fight, they just did such a good job of making sure Team Luke couldn't be a part of it at all at the top. Looks like we're going to get maybe some more action here on the bot side, as Tony Top has made himself down to the bot side just to be able to clear some of this. Right here in the mid lane, Prismal is all alone because Newbie is also towards that bot, coming through from the river portion. Flash over the wall from Prismal. The bomb is somewhat good, but not enough to end it. Tomio goes in, finishes off from Jojo Pyun onto the enemy Trundle. Rosethorn no longer a part of this fight alongside Prismal. So EGA answering back with some firepower of their own.
Prismal thought he was safe underneath that turret, but all it takes is one satchel charge from Team Luke's Ziggs to completely explode the dreams of the Callista. Genius Academy, they are spotted on this Baron, so Golden Guardians can maybe get into the pit and disrupt this, but without a smite from Rosethorn, they think better of it. They don't go for the Baron, and they instead give it up. Genius Academy lock in another objective on this top side of the map for themselves.
They don't see it as worth staggering any of their timers anymore. A few more hits will do it onto the Baron, and Evil Geniuses Academy walk away with it. Now Golden Guardians have to wait this out a bit and do their best to minimize any of the advantages that are gained with this buff.
Most importantly as well, wait 3 minutes, because once they do that, Evil Geniuses can only be in one place, and that is the Drake pit. That is a huge advantage for Golden Guardians. They know that they won't have to deal with Baron at that point. It will expire, and they won't have to worry too much if they can keep their base alive about super minions or any split push threats. But you have to worry about this fight.
Another proactive play. Jojo Pyun getting right into the face, but on the back line is where the TF gets caught out. The route is good onto Team Luke. EGA pick up one for themselves, though, and trade it back. Rosethorn and the team navigating their way back towards that mid lane, away from EGA, and just taking this 1-for-1 trade so far of both. Just got a lot of the damage. Goes in. Mystique is trying to go for it. Rosethorn locked under the turret, finds this death into the grave. He goes, and the pursuit continues from EGA. Stunned once again under the inhib turret at this point. Continuing to move on forward. Exhaust onto Tony Top is not enough to stop him from leaping in. The shots are good. Niles flashes out of the wind, becomes lightning. Jojo Pyun him, you get some chains. Not gonna rain down with enough of that damage after stealing from the Jace here. But in the end, EGA, they are coming up from scrappy fights.
They absolutely are, but Niles may have just saved that entire base and the entire fight on Jace too. Those are some crazy shock blasts from him on the back end of it, and he gets to dodge out from the ones of Jojo too. Some impressive stuff from the top laner of Golden Guardians Academy, who has been truly bullied in this game, if we're being completely honest. So many ganks, so much pressure sent his direction. He can shrug it off when it matters most in these fights. I want to take a look at what happens to Team Luke, though, in this one, because Yunbi does deal all the damage that he possibly can. It ends up still killing Team Luke. Very, very valuable pick, because if you keep him alive with the Baron, you might just lose the entire game. Ziggs does so much damage to those structures, and he is the range champion, so he can do it safely. So I really like this one-for-one trade. It's the fact that EGA still find the play afterward, and they can punk out Rosethorn, even kill him, and makes this favorable up until Niles.
Yeah, then Niles did Niles' thing to make sure that EGA weren't able to continue pushing after this, though you do have to commend their continued pursuit as so many low members of GGA. But in the end, on the side of Golden Guardians, like you said, they caught out Team Luke, and this is multiple fights now that they have made sure to focus in on that threat. You can't really do much to keep him from getting the Mega Inferno Bomb out, but you can keep him away once he gets into range, start dishing out the rest of his damage, and GGA making sure to do what they can with that. There's also some Grievous Runes built across for GGA to try and break through some of that sustainability that has been building for EGA.
Their inhibitor turrets alive up until this point as well. They're going to be recalling for Evil Genius's side as they have lost out. Oh no!
Oh, Shepherd
Run!
Hey Bart. Oh man. Let's get to this action right now, though. Tomio goes in onto Rosethorn. Tony Top hops over the wall and is ready with the counter strike. There's a flash out of this. Rosethorn has to run away, but on the opposite end, Niles tried to go in for as much of the fight as he possibly could, but got collapsed upon by EGA and out of it.
Ooh, and Yunbi still committing to the side lane right now. Will take a recall, a wise move, as there was so much threat to recall out the members of Evil Genius Academy. Most importantly, they still remain in control of the game, and they do take their first dragon of the series just when they need it the most, Tigris. That is another 5 minutes on the timer for Golden Guardian's potential soul.
I do, just looking at how this game has went through in recent minutes, I thoroughly enjoyed Jojo Piano on the Silas, where he's using hijack just in so many smart ways. It hasn't always worked out to the fullest of its potential, but that is just a potential win condition for the side of EGA, considering how strong he has been when piloting a pick like this and really using his league IQ to the utmost of his ability.
Yeah, you gotta play 6 different champions when you're playing Silas. You gotta know all the ultimates on the other team and your own abilities at the same time. Kind of like Viego, except only the ultimates, so it's nice. You get Silas and Viego, then you get 10 champions on your team. So, a nice steal your champion combination that we don't get to see right now, but we do get to see Jojo totally smurfing on this champion. It's 25 stacks in his book. Look at this guy.
So strong in his build. 703 on the scoreboard for him. And I think when we talk about EGA, it's hard not to talk about this mid laner, but the variety in the play styles that he has showed up with throughout this year is one of the things that makes him so fun to watch, especially in a game like this, where I think that both are keeping up with the scrap as expected, but EGA right now in their own territory, catching out Mystique, has to use the battle dance to get back to the rest of his team. And Yunbi also popping the Destiny, a little wary of if EGA was going to continue to crash in onto them. But instead, they're turning their sights over towards that Baron that is spawning right now. But this shouldn't be complete news that is new for GGA. They're sending Niles down to finish off this bot turret. He has teleport available. You can see that teleport start to come in. The tempered fade directly onto the objective, catching Tomio out as well. But EGA aren't necessarily wanting to peel off of this just yet. They're waiting for GGA to make their step up before they commit too many of their resources here.
Yunbi using Destiny early is a pretty big deal, though. Golden Guardians have to actually commit either wards or their own bodies to see into this pit. Luckily, they did still have that control ward in there, so the Geniuses don't feel completely comfortable taking that one out. They know what happened in their Baron attempt in Game 1. They do not want a repeat scenario. They'll be clearing out all the vision and just go for another escape go back to even footing, but Geniuses are back on the map slightly sooner, or maybe they've just stuck around longer as they have to go back and get some more wards. You can see some open spots there being filled by Mystiques, by Team Luke, and by JoJo likely as he does go for a recall. Nope, he wants a Kindle Gem instead. No wards for the Sylas. He's already too fit.
And all ultimates available for EGA, all teleports available. They did bring 3 across the board because Team Luke being on that Ziggs. Or Golden Guardians, they had used that Destiny prior, which is about 80% of the way, but had also used that TP from Niles too. So whereas before they could send him to just push into one of these other lanes, they can't do so as effectively, which is why they've sent TF down in that direction since Destiny is coming up exactly now. So potentially on the skirts of another skirmish here on the top side outside of Baron.
I do like the Golden Guardians Academy are still sticking one member in the side lane, as you said. They have some global threat, and they do want to keep that as an option, potentially removing Tony Top from a team fight scenario. As teleport, though, and with this Baron started up, the Geniuses Academy have to commit to this or turn.
Oh, Mystique tried to go for the flank, but collapsed upon right there in the middle of GGA. So GGA feeling a bit more confident after taking out the enemy support with such a great source of their engage. EGA, harder for them to stick over into that riverside. So coming to the protection, but there's a pillar between them and the rest of the protection of this tower. Another player eliminated. Team Luke no longer here to dish out what he needs to. Yunbi was traded on the opposite side, but it's GGA with 30 seconds to spare on this dragon. They just want to continue this pressure onto EGA, keep them away from that major objective. Can they get another pick right here? Tomio goes in, has his sights onto Newbie. Newbie gets popped up, but the face call brings him out of it. A little low on the HP, but he's now on the outskirts. Tomio has to go into stasis. Rosethorn flashes away as well. Tony Top still in pursuit, activates the counter-strike, has the leap in to try and get onto Prismal. Prismal flashing over to the side.
Tomio!
Tomio, he goes in, he flashes. Jax is here in response. The shutdown coming out in favor of Prismal here. And Newbie, only one to survive from his squad. EGA are the winners of that fight.
JoJo and Tony Top are impossible to kill, even in an outnumbered fight. They're so bulky, they have so much sustain with the Sylas Kingslayer and the itemization on this Jax. They can stay alive through it all. They don't need their bottom lane pair, and they get to take out an entire team fight just basically on their own as Tomio is there just to disrupt. Triple kill for JoJo, and again they stop the timer on the dragon. Golden Guardians Academy are delayed even further. You get to see this start again. Mystique's very caught out thanks to Destiny.
Yeah, the kill on Mystiques was good. The kill on Team Luke to follow was also good eventually. But GGA, in the end, as you were saying, there's just so much sustain on some of the players over here on EGA that made it so difficult. And right here, that pillar smacks was a way to really get this going even more aggressively.
Yeah, it was a nice way for Golden Guardians to keep going in this fight, but as soon as you see that they don't have any magic damage on their squad anymore, as soon as Yunbi dies, and Prismal has to just be auto-attacking effectively the entire time to see that it's really, really difficult to break through these members. They're all very melee, very bulky, and so much crowd control to deal with that Prismal is completely on his lonesome. His entire front line is already chunked, has to flash out, and at this point, JoJo and Tony, they see they're in. They know they can fully engage, not have to worry. And that's exactly what they do, locking in this triple kill for JoJo and the Drake, and maybe even this Baron.
EGA have already chunked down Baron to pass the 50% HP mark, and Golden Guardians are funneled right here on the outside. Yunbi trying to get some image. Ooh. Oh, it's actually JoJo Pion over here in the backside. Bomb comes through from Zig. Knock up from Mystique. He starts to get blasted down though. Prismal, after coming out of stasis, manages to get his life lost, and EGA are still going for this. 2 for 2 traded so far. Rosethorn will be the next to fall. A nice hop in from Tony Top, and GGA, everybody that's alive on their side is nice and separated. Another scrappy one in this game, Smack.
Yeah, another sick flank for JoJo as well. You can think about going back to the Baron for what feels like a 10th time. Niles has so much poke, though. This is probably going to signal an 11th afterward. Wait.
Oh, Tomio dashes in, but gets stunned up immediately, and Tony Top one little sliver to keep him alive and does escape into his friendly jungle territory, but GGA can poke him off and away.
It's so hard to take that Baron when Niles teleports in with all of this damage. And I mean, we see it right there. Tomio just falls immediately, can't do a single thing about it. And a bold play for Evil Geniuses Academy, but Bold is their middle name. You'd think that it was Geniuses, but it's not. It is in fact Bold. They
I believe
go
it.
for another fight. Oh, I know. These team fights are just so wacky, and I love that JoJo is fully committed to going for this flank, even though he has just a massive shutdown over his head.
And this time, Golden Guardians are the ones on the Baron. Keep in mind how many times we've seen this shift back and forth. Team Luke throws down the bomb, but everybody separates around of it. Tony Top stunned up, so he can't get out of the range of this Tempered Fate. And Jojo Quinoa is also caught up in this, but it's the red team that ends up securing the objective. GGA walking away with the Baron. Not too many scratches on their back.
Yeah, that was really smart from Golden Guardians. They have the Ren stack, and they have a panic button ready at their disposal, which is the Bard tunnel. You can get out of any sticky situation that they find themselves in. So even though JoJo throws that Tempered Fate, and even though Team Luke is throwing the Mega Inferno Bomb, still have Prismal in the back of the pit, throwing spears, doing his best that he possibly can. Really love that play, but oh, look at this. We get to see JoJo's flank again. I love it.
Yeah, all the way towards the back and then just zips right in. The combination between being there to be able to dish damage and Mystique's willing to make these plays. And even though Mystique has been dying in the earlier portions of these smacks, everybody else that stays alive between Tony Top and Tomio are able to clean up so effectively, especially when Team Luke isn't deleted right off the top.
Luke does deal a crazy amount of damage, but not to Baron. You think of this champion more as a team fighting option, not as a single target burst. So the fact that they go for this Baron may have been the play that swung the tides over to Golden Guardians. They're now setting up for this Drake. And you can see that the gold lead is really gone now at this point.
Tomio goes in once again, gets stunned, dashes right on back out. The bomb has been dropped, and a jump from Tony Top, but he gets exhausted. There's a Tempered Fate onto JoJo as well as Tomio. And into the center of it all, it's Mystique grabbing them with the charm. But Tony and the rest of them starting to get sliced through, but they ditch it back to Prismal. Another big burst. This forces Rosethorn out of it, using the magical journey alongside Newbie to get away. Niles also chunked down low. It's a 2 for 2 here, but the Baron buff still in the favor of GGA. Keep that in mind. Rosethorn, that's a lot of burst coming your way, but he can just swag walk out of it. Sidestep from the Tempered Fate from JoJo Pion onto Newbie. And that's the disengage right here. Another Drake picked up for EGA. Now 3-3 on the Drake board.
The next dragon, if it gets that far, will be sold no matter what. This is not a situation that I expected us to be in, honestly. Golden Guardians taking the first 3, but not able to take any of the fights in the past 15 minutes for the next ones. This is a tricky situation to be in for them. You can see that they are still finding some creativity around the Baron play that we just saw, and around still finding kills in team fights, but not decisive enough for them to lock in that objective that they really want.
EGA feeling a lot more comfortable in their engage here. Again, Mystique just really willing to lead the charge, even if it doesn't always end in the cleanliest manner, but trusting that the rest of the team is going to be there as well to support him in that endeavor. And GGA haven't been able to find a way to keep them from at least evenly trading at this point, Smash.
Geniuses, they are denying the Drakes, though, which is a really big deal. If they can get the next one, then all that scaling advantage that Golden Guardians prepared for themselves early just goes to the wayside. You can see that EG are just fully committing to, no matter what, as long as they keep their jungler and their backline alive in this team fight and they can push Golden Guardians out, then this is a team fight win. You can see in the way that they are positioning around this corridor, they don't really care about giving up their lives as long as they're pushing Golden Guardians out. That's exactly what they do, and JoJo, still 13 kills in this guy, is completely competent to do exactly that.
They're making it very difficult for Golden Guardians to commit to any of these targets, really, in the fight. You get some hits onto Tomio, then he backs out of it, and then Tony Top is here, and every time that they're looking to try and burn somebody down, the sustain and that survivability is just too much for EGA. Now, they're the ones very forwardly positioned here in the mid lane, pushing up these waves as much as possible. They had Tony Top towards that bot once again for a little bit longer, which is exactly where he likes to be at this stage of the game. It's 64 turrets as well for EGA, who have been on the onslaught as of late, with a slight gold lead working out for themselves.
I really like that JoJo just goes for that bluff. You know, there's no way that he's actually committing to a kill onto Newbie after hitting him with Tempered Fate, but it's the flash anyway. Newbie very, very careful, trying not to get picked out in this game. I really like that call from JoJo, just throwing that ultimate. It's a very low cooldown. He's already got Hijack up again. This is a level 18 Sylas with Cosmic Drive. Those ultimates are just coming left, right, and center. This guy is not going to be without an R key for the remainder of the game. So JoJo, thinking heads up, will go for this one, and we can pressure around this side of the map as well. Newbie is completely out of wards, has to go back to the base, and they're using this window of opportunity very well on the side of EG.
Opportunity to get these wards in, to continue pushing up through the enemy jungle, and just have complete control over this map at this point in time, being that they have been so effective in the fights in recent engages between the two, and we're getting to that later portion of the game, over 40 minutes, the timers get longer. You get punished so much more for getting somebody individually picked out, and with EGA operating so much on GGA's side of the map, it is much more detrimental to GGA, even if they come out of these wins fairly evenly within the moments to come.
They're coming down to the wire as far as the items are concerned. We're seeing multiple members of both teams with completely full inventories, most notably JoJo, as we're seeing this level 18 Sylas just have completely capped out now. That is a Destiny pop. They don't see JoJo because of the Banshee's Veil, but it's not really going to matter.
They're very scared once they see this Destiny pop from TF. EGA peel off the Baron. They don't want to be caught as fish in a barrel here, but are very much eager to get some kind of fight started.
This might be a situation where we trade Baron for the Soul, which would be a really tricky situation. Golden Guardians are trying to commit for the Baron, though. They have the same strategy as before. They have Ren stacks, they have Magical Journey to get out, but they might find themselves in a worse spot now. JoJo has the Subjugate.
The EGA, they decide not to go over towards the Dragon side and instead hover around this Baron, find an opportunity. Tomio gets quite the chunk. We've seen what Niall can do. A nice charm. Here's the activation. EGA going in. Niles and Yunbi are separated onto the sideline. Tomio and Team Luke. Team Luke, a nice blast out with the satchel charge. The resurrection has begun for Niles, but he'll be blasted down easily as a result. On the opposite side, you see a similar effect with Tony Top, just sticking to Prismal. Newbie being stuck on by Jojo Pion and Tomio. EGA completely separating the entirety of Golden Guardians Academy in that fight. And now Yunbi has to answer by coming back to base right now for a defensive stance alongside Newbie. They're the only ones that can try and hold off against EGA right now.
They can go for the end, though, on EGA's side. They have Tony and Team Luke. So much siege threat right here, and they're going for it. Flash forward.
The flash forward and the hop in from Tony Top. A stun from Newbie with that Cosmic Bind, but in the end, he is just a bard. Evil Geniuses Academy keep themselves in this series. A win for game number 2.
2 comebacks in a row, but for the opposite teams, La Tigris, we are going straight for that game 3. And if you remember what I said in game 1, Golden Guardians, they had a comeback, but it wasn't one of those ones that goes super, super late game, 40, 50 minutes. This one was. So we are now fully into the straining mental battle of this best of 3 series. Both of these teams want to continue on the upper side of the bracket and not start their Proving Grounds journey on the lower end. And they've made convincing cases, both of them, at this point.
Evil Geniuses Academy have had many games in the past where they've proven, hey, even if we're behind, we can definitely come through. We know how to keep our mental strong and turn it into a victory. But that can happen in very different fashions. And here it was, we break even in this fight. We break even in another. We trust in our solo laners. We trust in our jungler to move on forward. And EGA evening up the series here. And Smacks, I think a lot of people saw the potential in this matchup for being something that could go the distance because of the swingy nature that we have seen both these teams in prior series.
Yeah, it's because of a lot of reasons. The swingy nature of that, the history between these two teams in just this year, the similarities that we highlighted at the top of the day, and everything in between just leads to a very competitive best-of-3 series that you kind of hope is repeated in the best of fives later on in Proving Grounds. But one of these teams is going to have to prove even more as we get to this game 3. And I mean, for Golden Guardians, they don't want to get reverse swept at this point. They want to come back with another strategy. We'll see what side they choose. We'll see what draft they choose as well. I'm so into this series right now, though. This is amazing.
Oh yeah, me as well, Specs. I am also so excited about this series. And we are continuing into a game 3 after this break. Everybody stay tuned to find out if Evil Geniuses Academy or Golden Guardians Academy are going to come out on top today.